that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident and that her partner, Dodi Fayed, has also been killed.
Queen Elizabeth's secret diary reveals a chilling truth about Princess Diana's death, one that changes everything. What if Diana's fatal crash wasn't just an accident? Hidden for 25 years, the Queen's words hint at a shocking cover-up, missing evidence, and a truth too dangerous to expose. Who was pulling the strings behind closed doors? Why did the security footage vanish? And what did the Queen mean when she wrote, "I should have stopped it"? Stay tuned, because once you hear this, you'll never see Diana's story the same way again. Queen Elizabeth's diary exposes the chilling truth behind Princess Diana's death. Princess Diana's romance with Dodi Fayed was no mere tabloid gossip. It was a crisis within the royal family. According to Queen Elizabeth's secret diary, King Charles viewed Diana's relationship as a direct threat. One chilling entry reads, "Charles confided that she was becoming a liability." A liability? That's no ordinary word. It signals danger, something, or someone that must be dealt with. And Diana wasn't just any ex-royal. She was beloved worldwide, with an unmatched ability to capture public attention. Her rebellious nature and independent spirit made her unpredictable, something the royal family could never tolerate. But what truly sent the monarchy into panic wasn't just Diana's influence, it was who she was with. Dodi Fayed wasn't just a wealthy suitor. He was the son of billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed, a man with deep connections and immense power. Even more alarming, whispers of Diana considering marriage to Dodi began circulating among her friends. For a monarchy built on control and tradition, the idea of a Muslim stepfather to the future King William was beyond unacceptable. It was a nightmare scenario. Behind palace walls, anxiety turned to desperation. The Crown's PR machine scrambled for damage control. But what happened next was far worse than spin and rumors. The Queen herself wrote, "I never imagined it would escalate like this." Did she underestimate the fear brewing within her circle? Or had a plan been set in motion, one designed to stop Diana before she could go any further? Prince Philip was never one to sugarcoat his words. According to the Queen's diary, he saw Diana as a loose cannon that needed to be controlled. He had tried everything, criticizing her activism, limiting her charity work, even commenting on her fashion choices. But nothing worked. Diana's humanitarian efforts were a direct contradiction to the monarchy's calculated neutrality. She was warm, empathetic, and deeply connected to people in a way the royals never could be. It infuriated them. The Queen's diary even suggests that Philip viewed her as an attention seeker, someone obsessed with playing the victim. But this wasn't just palace gossip. There were real-world consequences to Diana's actions. In 1997, her anti-landmine campaign put her in direct conflict with UK government policy. She wasn't just a popular princess anymore. She was a political problem. And Philip, the Queen wrote, demanded restraint. But restraint in what way? We know Philip had strong connections to intelligence circles. We know Diana's actions angered those who valued stability over sentiment. Did someone interpret his words as a call to stop her, permanently? Or was the hostility toward her enough to create an environment where people believed they were justified in acting against her? Diana was no stranger to the paparazzi. They followed her everywhere, desperate for the next big shot. But the diary hints that this wasn't just relentless media chaos. It was something more calculated. Royal aides reportedly discussed using the press as a weapon, leaking her whereabouts to make her feel trapped. The Queen's words are cryptic but suggestive. What if others didn't dismiss the idea? That summer, Diana was finalizing her plans to go public in a way the monarchy feared. Exclusive interviews were on the horizon, and rumors swirled of a tell-all memoir, one that could expose secrets no one wanted revealed. Then suddenly the press seemed to know her every move. They swarmed her in Paris, a frenzy beyond anything before. Was it pure coincidence? Or was someone pulling strings behind the scenes, ensuring she was placed in the perfect storm? And then there was Henri Paul, her driver that night, someone whose story doesn't add up. Henri Paul wasn't just some reckless chauffeur who had one too many drinks. The Queen's diary hints at something far darker. MI6 files link him to pressure from shadowy figures. But by whom? This was a man trained in security, someone who knew the risk, Yet he made inexplicable choices. He took a route he knew was dangerous. He ignored standard safety protocols. He drove erratically, far beyond what could be explained by mere intoxication. And then there was the blood test. It showed lethal levels of alcohol and antidepressants, but forensic experts later questioned its authenticity. Some of the samples contained preservatives found only in stored laboratory blood. In other words, the evidence may have been tampered with. If that's true, then who planted the false results? Who needed Henri Paul to look like the villain? The Queen never named names, but her words suggest she suspected more than she let on.
That mischievous, inquiring twinkle was as bright at the end, were all irrepressible.
MI6 had been monitoring Diana. Was Paul coerced, manipulated, perhaps even sacrificed to ensure a specific outcome? And yet, there's one final piece of the puzzle, one crucial element that changes everything: the unseen car. Witnesses described a vehicle that night that vanished without a trace. Who was in it? And more importantly, what were they trying to do? The unseen car. Queen Elizabeth's diary reveals. The unseen car seconds before the crash. Witnesses saw a mysterious white Fiat Uno collide with Princess Diana's speeding Mercedes. Forensic experts confirmed paint traces at the crash site, yet investigators dismissed it. Why? Queen Elizabeth's diary suggests a cover-up. The collision forced Diana's car off course, but the Fiat's driver was never found. Rumors claim the car belonged to a photographer with MI6 ties. Even more chilling, a French medic reported seeing a man in black flee the scene. Coincidence? Or was the crash orchestrated? If the Fiat was part of a setup, silencing its driver would have been easy. The royal family had powerful connections in France. Diplomats, intelligence officers, and high-ranking officials. Could they have influenced the investigation? The diary doesn't confirm, but it raises disturbing questions. Then comes the lost evidence. The Ritz Hotel was covered in security cameras, except conveniently on the night of Diana's death. The footage? Gone. No backups. No explanations. Earlier that evening, Diana's driver, Henri Paul, acted strangely. He received mysterious calls and left the hotel abruptly. That footage? Erased. Hotel staff logs from that night? Vanished. Mohammed Al-Fayed accused MI6 of seizing them. Was it paranoia? Maybe. But the Queen's diary hints otherwise. This was no accident. In 2004, a retired French detective admitted key evidence was destroyed. By whom? He refused to say, but someone had the power to erase the truth before the world could see it. Then there's Prince Philip. He wasn't just Diana's critic, he was her most dangerous adversary. The diary captures his frustration. She's a loose cannon. He said it publicly, not privately. Former aides claim he once suggested permanently exiling Diana. And Philip wasn't just a royal, he was a former Navy officer with deep intelligence ties. He mingled with military leaders, men trained to eliminate threats. Did his words inspire someone to act? Here's where it gets darker. In 1997, months before Diana's death, Philip hosted a private dinner. Among the guests, the Director General of MI5. The topic? National security threats. That same year, Diana's landmine campaign embarrassed the British government. Could she have been labeled a threat? The diary doesn't say, but the timing is suspicious. Philip's power, his temper, and his influence. Was this a recipe for disaster? Then, there's the pregnancy rumor. The most explosive claim: Princess Diana was pregnant with Dodi Fayed's child. The diary treads carefully, but if true, the monarchy faced a crisis. A royal step-sibling to William and Harry, raised in Islam? Unthinkable. Diana's closest friends say she wanted another child, but no pregnancy was confirmed. Yet a Paris nurse claimed she tested Diana for pregnancy just hours before the crash. That report disappeared. The Queen's diary describes it ominously. A motive, fabricated in shadows. Even if the pregnancy was only a rumor, the fear alone was enough. The monarchy had survived many scandals, but a biracial Muslim heir linked to Diana's legacy? That could have shattered public trust in the crown. The diary never confirms the pregnancy, but it reveals the royals' terror at the thought of it. And fear makes people do terrible things. King Charles' desperation. What was he willing to sacrifice to protect the monarchy? And how far would he go to silence the woman who threatened its future? The crown's deepest fear. King Charles wasn't just envious, he was terrified. The Queen's diary reveals that his greatest fear wasn't just public humiliation, but the possibility of losing the throne altogether. And honestly, he had every reason to be worried. After their divorce, Princess Diana's popularity skyrocketed. Her 1995 BBC interview drew 23 million viewers, and in a single moment, she turned King Charles into a villain in the eyes of the world. But this wasn't just about his image. It was about his future. The royal succession isn't set in stone. If the Queen deemed him unfit, she had the power to bypass him and name Prince William as her direct successor. The diary hints that Charles became obsessed with this possibility. He reportedly told aides, "She's destroying us all." Fear turned to paranoia, and paranoia led to desperate actions. Weeks before Princess Diana's fatal crash, King Charles had meetings with MI6 agents. Routine discussions, or something far more calculated? The diary doesn't confirm, but it raises a chilling question. How far would a future king go to protect his crown? Then came the royal lockdown. Just minutes after Princess Diana's crash, Buckingham Palace went into crisis mode. According to the diary, Balmoral became an impenetrable fortress. Phone logs erased, staff briefed, statements rehearsed. Why? Because her death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a PR disaster for the monarchy. The Queen waited 5 days to address the public. 5 days. Why the delay? The diary claims senior aides spent that time crafting the perfect narrative. King Charles's phone records were reportedly scrubbed. Too many questionable calls, too many loose ends. Even Prince Philip's television statement was rehearsed multiple times to prevent any missteps. And then there's the smoking gun. A leaked memo from 1997 instructing all staff to align their statements. No deviations, circle the wagons. But what were they protecting? The institution? The royal family's reputation? Or something far darker? The diary's final words on the matter are chilling. We had to protect the institution, but at what cost? Then there was the mysterious doctor. Princess Diana's crash happened at 12:23 a.m. She didn't arrive at the hospital until nearly 2 a.m. That's over an hour and a half. Why the delay? The diary hints at a shadowy figure. Witnesses claim a man in a suit, not a medic, arrived at the crash scene within minutes. He directed first responders, seemingly taking control of the situation. But here's where things get strange. This so-called doctor was never identified by French authorities. Who was he? The diary suggests he was no ordinary passerby, but a royal-appointed specialist sent to assess the situation. But assess for what? To ensure Princess Diana didn't survive long enough to speak? To tamper with evidence? Even stranger, Diana's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, the only survivor of the crash, later said, "I don't remember seeing any doctor." If that's true, was this mysterious figure a ghost? A fixer? Or was his presence simply erased from the official record? The timeline doesn't add up. Paramedics confirmed Princess Diana was still alive at the crash scene. She had a pulse. Yet by the time she arrived at the hospital, she was gone. Was this just an unfortunate delay, or was something far more sinister at play? And then came the letter. 10 months before her death, Princess Diana wrote a chilling note. "I'm being followed. My car is being tampered with. I fear King Charles wants me dead." The Queen's diary confirms that she saw this letter. It was buried in the royal archives. "I read it," she wrote. "Guilt haunts me." This letter wasn't just a wild theory. It was real. It had been leaked years ago, but the royal family dismissed it as paranoia. Yet Princess Diana's lawyer confirmed that she feared for her life.
And also, I'd like to just add how proud I am to be princess of such a wonderful place.
She even named specific individuals in private meetings. After her death, the letter mysteriously disappeared from official records. The Queen's diary admission is explosive. If she knew Princess Diana felt threatened, why wasn't she protected? More disturbingly, why did the palace dismiss the letter as irrelevant during the official inquest? Was this proof that they knew the danger and ignored it? Or worse, were they complicit? The Queen's guilt speaks volumes. But what exactly was she guilty of? Ignoring the warning? Or enabling the very thing Diana feared most? the missing bodyguard. Trevor Rees-Jones, the only survivor, held the key to what truly happened that night. But why couldn't he remember anything? And was his amnesia just a coincidence or something far more deliberate? The missing bodyguard, the silence that changed everything. Trevor Rees-Jones was the only survivor of the crash, but his memory was wiped clean. The Queen's diary suggests hypnosis sessions later uncovered troubling gaps and even threats. Trevor's injuries were severe, yet he insisted, "I remember nothing after leaving the Ritz." Strange, right? Even stranger, his initial statements contradicted forensic evidence. He swore driver Henry Paul was sober, but toxicology reports told a different story. Years later, a hypnotist supposedly helped him recover fragments of that night. He recalled men in suits approaching the wreckage, a voice shouting, "Stop them!" But before he could say more, he went silent. The diary hints at something sinister. Trevor survived the crash, but not the aftermath. Was he threatened? By the royals? The press? Or someone with too much to lose if the truth came out? Then there was the flash. Witnesses described a blinding light just before impact, like a camera flash, but stronger. The diary asks, was it military-grade tech or a staged accident? Let's get technical. In 1997, the UK military had high-intensity strobes capable of disorienting drivers. A coincidence? Maybe. But here's where it gets wild. A paparazzo at the scene later confessed, "The light wasn't from us." Another witness swore it was mounted to the tunnel wall. So was this flash meant to blind Henry Paul and force the crash? If so, who planted it? MI6? A foreign intelligence agency? Or someone within the royal family's inner circle? Investigators never explained the flash. Because they couldn't? Or because they wouldn't? And then, the French connection. The French investigation was a masterclass in silence. The diary claims that a gift from our government ensured cooperation. What does that mean? Let's connect the dots. France quickly blamed the paparazzi and Henry Paul. Case closed. But witnesses vanished, evidence disappeared, and even the presiding judge later admitted, "We were pressured to hurry." Pressured by whom? Weeks after the crash, the UK awarded France a lucrative defense contract. Was this a coincidence? Or a well-timed favor to keep certain truths buried? The diary's language is chilling. Silenced, not persuaded, not convinced. Silenced. If French investigators had looked deeper, they might have found threads leading back to the crown. Threads someone was willing to sever, whether with cash, threats, or both. The real question isn't what they hid, it's who they were protecting. And then, the royal PR machine. The world saw the royal family mourning Princess Diana, but behind palace doors, the diary exposes a brutal truth. We mourned publicly, but privately, we were relieved. Princess Diana's death was a PR catastrophe, but also an opportunity. Before the crash, her popularity was a problem. Polls showed 70% of Brits blamed King Charles for their divorce, and the monarchy's approval ratings were plummeting. But after her death, the narrative flipped overnight. The Queen's delayed speech. The flag is at half-mast. The tearful crowds. It was all damage control. The diary admits senior aides orchestrated every moment of that grief-stricken facade. But the most damning revelation? A leaked Buckingham Palace memo from September 1997. Princess Diana's legacy must now serve the crown, not undermine it. Her death was rebranded, not as a failure of the monarchy, but as a national tragedy. Even her beloved charities were absorbed into royal initiatives, ensuring that in death, she became a tool for the very institution she once threatened. The diary doesn't just expose hypocrisy, it reveals a calculated rebirth of the monarchy's image. And it worked. But what if the story didn't end there? The blood sample switch. If Henry Paul was truly drunk, why did some reports suggest his toxicology results were tampered with? Could someone have swapped his blood sample to frame him? Or was it all part of a much bigger cover-up? Silenced truth. The unanswered questions behind a fatal night. Henry Paul's toxicology report painted him as a man too drunk to drive. But the diary tells a different story. The official records claimed his blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. Yet something didn't add up. French law requires 2 blood samples for confirmation. but only one was ever tested. Then came the real shock. Traces of carbon monoxide were found in his blood, the same gas commonly present in embalmed bodies. If that were true, it could only mean one thing. Someone swapped Paul's blood with that of a corpse. But why? The diary suggests MI6 orchestrated the switch, manipulating evidence to craft a narrative that would conveniently blame the crash on a reckless, intoxicated driver. Witnesses at the Ritz, including a bartender, insisted Paul had only consumed 2 shots that night. If he wasn't as drunk as the reports claimed, why the deception? Was this an attempt to divert attention from something much bigger? Something meant to stay buried along with the victims? Princess Diana's 1996 divorce settlement seemed straightforward: money, assets, and a formal separation from Prince Charles. But a critical clause was hidden within the legal jargon: a gag order. This order legally barred her from discussing Charles's affairs, Camilla, or any sensitive royal secret. Yet Diana had already begun to lift the curtain, revealing glimpses of hidden truths in her explosive BBC interview, where she famously stated, "There were 3 of us in this marriage." The royal family feared she wouldn't stop there. Rumors swirled that she was preparing to publish a memoir, one that would expose financial scandals, concealed lineage, and the monarchy's darkest secrets. But here's where things get even more unsettling. The gag order was set to expire in 2000. If Diana had lived, she would have been free to speak, unrestricted and unfiltered. Her death in 1997, therefore, came at an eerily convenient time. Was it merely an accident, or was there a deeper motive behind ensuring her voice was permanently silenced? That night in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, something strange happened. Every single CCTV camera failed. All of them. Engineers later confirmed there were no technical malfunctions in the system. So how did they all go dark at the exact moment of the crash? The diary suggests it wasn't a coincidence, but an intentional blackout, possibly triggered by a remote kill switch. Who could pull that off? French intelligence? MI6? Perhaps even both? In 1999, a French technician came forward with a chilling confession. He had received a call instructing him to disable the cameras on that very night. He refused to disclose the caller's identity, but noted their English was polished, their accent refined. Without footage, there was no visual record, no evidence of the blinding flash witnesses reported, no proof of the suspicious vehicles tailing the car, and no trace of the unknown figures seen at the scene. Was this an elaborate cover-up? If so, who orchestrated it, and what were they trying so hard to erase? The final entry in the diary delivers an unsettling revelation. I failed her. The crown's cold machinery consumed her light. God forgive us. This isn't mere remorse. It's an admission of institutional betrayal. Bound by duty and centuries-old tradition, the monarchy saw Diana as a threat, a force that could unravel its carefully constructed image. And yet, they did nothing to protect her. The diary never directly states that the royal family orchestrated her death, but it doesn't have to. Acknowledging the brutal lengths to which the monarchy would go to preserve itself raises the unspoken question: was Diana's death a tragic accident, or was it an act of preservation, ensuring that the monarchy's future remained intact at the cost of one woman's life? In the years following her passing, the monarchy saw a resurgence in public support. The grief of the people was redirected into a narrative that softened their anger, carefully reshaping Diana's legacy into one that ultimately reinforced the institution rather than challenging it. Her rebellious spirit was erased, and her causes were absorbed into the royal family's initiative. The timing, the inconsistencies, and the orchestrated silence all point to something more than coincidence. If the royal family did hide the truth, do you think we'll ever uncover it? Or will Diana's story remain locked away in that diary forever? We would like to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.